Good afternoon, everyone. I know we can have a little bit more energy. I know we've been here all day. I'd like to hear it again. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. My name is DeJuan Patterson, and I'm a patients program community partner, as well as advisor consultant. There's great stuff that we would call. And I'll just jump right on in and let my panelists begin to introduce themselves with a quick bio, like 2 to 3 minutes.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Frank Lance. I pastor the Mount Lebanon Baptist Church in the Montgomery community where that shop was located, and on the steering committee of patients.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Brown. I own a vegan restaurant called The Land of Kush, located at 840 North Utah Street. Thank you. So not far from here if you need to order food.
Hello, my name is Dominic Nell, also known as Farmer Nell. I own a business called City Weeds. I also operate a program called the Food Project and have a program called Be More Green. And I participate in also food rescue initiatives around Baltimore City in areas known as food deserts.
My name is Yinka Ladeji. I work for the Patients Program as a project manager with the wonderful team that you met earlier. I work specifically, most recently, on the Learning Healthcare Communities Project, which I'll be speaking on this panel. And I've worked in the field of global health and also in research as well.
Thank you. And I would like to start off with the title of the actual panel. It is Healthy Neighborhoods versus Food Deserts and Food Swamps. Right now, we are calling them food priority areas, sometimes short referred to as priority areas. And within Baltimore City, we always like to start off with some facts or some information that was based upon research that was retrieved by the community. 31% of Black residents are living in food priority areas compared to 8.9% of white residents. I'll say those stats one more time. 31% of Black residents are currently living in food priority areas or food swamps compared to 8.9 white residents within Baltimore City. Children are the most likely of any age will be living inside a food priority areas no matter the age. So given the stats that we're hearing right now, I will start off with Farmer Nell. What are obstacles you have encountered or you're currently encountering that's with setting up your organization and doing the work that you're doing?
There's a range of obstacles that I face due to the range of focuses that I have. One being growing vegetables outdoors is a challenge. When we see these vacant lots and green spaces, ideally you would want to transform that into, a community garden. But you have lead in the soil that you have to be concerned about. Even when you're using processes called raised beds, you still have to monitor that whole process, make sure it's airtight, literally watertight. As far as like the youth work that I do in communities, it's a lot of challenges with just resources, like wraparound services, pertaining to the families of the youth that I'm addressing. So it's nothing more than novelty if it doesn't reciprocate beyond the child. So if they're going home into an environment that's not really supporting or looking to, willing to change some of those behaviors, it's just getting family members involved. Some of the areas that I'm in, one particular 21223 Southwest Baltimore, not too far from here, is the poorest zip code in the state of Maryland. So when you want to speak of obstacles, there's a list. Everything that's going on in Baltimore that's a plight is times 10 in that neighborhood. And it includes both percentages, that 8.9 and that 31% of people living in the food desert, meaning that it's actually below the privilege line. So my conversation in zone 21217 is a totally different conversation and a totally different platform when I go to that neighborhood. Some of my conversation, it was a challenge because some of my conversation, it's beyond the systematic structural racism obstacles, it's straight up poverty. And you can see that it was planned, it was designed that way. It wasn't like, so I don't even refer to them as food deserts. My term is, ending food apartheid, because this is something that was man-made. And then that also comes from just the redlining system, and then just disproportionate equity over time. And then you sprinkle drugs in that community, and then you pull the schools out of the neighborhood because we're operating out of a school that closed down. So that was a gift and a curse within itself.
Thank you, Dad. Great deal of information. It was a part of the. Thank you. You can give him a round of applause. Man, it touched on a lot of the points that I was actually going to ask, but there was one point in particular that I would like to uplift, and it's going to be geared toward Pastor Lance. Understand that a few churches are actually in the area, and they're starting their own, within the area, and using their own land to grow their own produce. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
So one of the things that we've come to realize is that one of the entities that owns a lot of land in the city, actually around the state, are churches. And for years, churches haven't quite figured out exactly what to do with that land. I'd say over the past 5 years, one of the most recent initiatives has been taking that land and doing community gardens. But as my brother said, there are a number of challenges to that. So you need to be aware and be educated to the fact that a lot of the land is toxic, and that land has to be mitigated. One of the other major struggles in Baltimore City is ownership, and so let's move to the perspective of vacant lots and where buildings have been demolished. You have a number of green spaces in Baltimore where there's no longer a building, but the person that owns that building is a vacant landlord, that owns that lot is a vacant landlord. And it takes Baltimore City about 2 to 3 years to go to the receivership process to pass title from someone who hasn't been around that property in 30 years. Right? It still takes 2 to 3 years to go through that legal process. And if you do anything on that land before then, what we've seen Baltimore City then come back and do is when they want to sell it to somebody else, is destroy that garden that you built, that land that you've used. And so what we're trying to do as it relates to churches is have a more productive use of land, but it really is a struggle because we have to mitigate it, we have to make sure that we're using it properly, you have to protect it, and it's just an overall struggle.
Thank you for that. Another round of applause for that work. Now we're hearing about how the community has taken upon themselves to address some of the food priorities within their area. Then we heard about how the faith-based community is actually utilizing the ownership of their land to produce for the community. I would now lend this platform and the microphone to Land of Kush owner, Brother Gregory Brown. And this time I would like to hear more because I know that Land of Kush is a vegan soul of a restaurant. And I'd like to hear a little bit more, tell the audience more about what are you doing to address that, or how being a business owner will impact your work.
So, I mean, it's for us, myself and my wife, it's not just a business, it is a social enterprise as well. So we don't look at it as we're just a restaurant. So we often try to reach out to communities, schools. We do presentations at schools. So we try to get into the community and try to educate as much as possible. We go to the youth and try to get the youth to teach their parents and give them the opportunity to come into the store. And then we go to where the parents are. We might go to someone's job site, we might go to a community center, we might go to a senior center, or we might be in public spaces like this where we try to expose other things that we do, because we also have a nonprofit called the Black Vegetarian Society of Maryland, where we go out and do educational things. That's strictly what that arm is for. So again, the restaurant, of course we want to make money and grow the restaurant, but it's not just that. It is a social enterprise, and that's always been the goal, is to help the community. And just like Farmanelle, we do the free food giveaway in front of the restaurant every Monday from 12 to 1. We give away free produce to anybody who wants to come up and get as much produce as they want. So we just try to be a community partner to anybody, whether it's churches, schools, whatever. We just try to be involved.
As far as a business, how do you envision using research of understanding and where the food priority areas are in the city and expansion?
So, I mean, we look at that. I mean, because really the ideal goal for Land of Kush, I mean, originally we wanted to be, we wanted to be on North Avenue, Northern Pennsylvania. That was one of the first places we kind of looked at, a location. But, you know, it just didn't work out. It didn't work out that way. But we look at that because where we're situated is it's a central location. So you have Mount Washington, you have Mount Vernon, you have downtown, you have Druid Heights, which includes the projects right around the corner from us, and we get orders from the projects. Like we've always had orders from the projects. Like I was delivering to some of the high rises over there in McCullough Homes. So we want to be strategically placed. I mean, we're trying to open another business in East Baltimore near Monument Street. I mean, you know, I used to hang out near Monument Street, so that's part of it. We don't want to be too far away from the community. You know, we want to be in touch. You know, it's great to have, I mean, because everybody comes through the restaurant. We can get anybody that comes through. So you might see one of the mayors in there. You might see the lieutenant governor in there. You might see, you know, Stevie Wonder in there. You might see Farmer Nell in there. You might see, you know, someone from the projects. Like, you know, we got a guy. I mean, he may drink alcohol a lot, but he does come in and get food from the Land of Kush, and that gives him an opportunity to be exposed to all those different people that come into the restaurant. Whereas maybe, you know, he would not have been exposed to that. You know, it just gives that opportunity. And it, you know, what I constantly see from, you know, where we are is that when people come in, people tend to connect because the space is small, people are next to each other. And so, just, I mean, to your point, you know, we kind of like that. We like to be near the community. You know, we understand the business aspect of it, location, you know, but Baltimore is so tight. It's a city of communities, where a city of neighborhoods where you can go a couple blocks and have, you know, the wealthy or middle class. You can go another 2 blocks and then be an entirely different social economic engine. So we try to position near those areas.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I love this panel because it's really diverse and it really make up of a lot of the different stakeholders within a community, whether they're inside a food priority area or a low food priority area. So my next question will be geared towards Yinka. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Patience Program as it relates to the studies of healthy neighborhoods and the community learning model? Community health learning model.
Okay, so one of the things that we're looking at with the Patience Program is an organization that is just a few years old at this point, and we have we embarked upon a project about 2 years ago called the Learning Healthcare Community Project, whereby we went into the mostly West Baltimore community and actually actively asked a lot of the residents, a lot of the patients and community members in West Baltimore. We asked healthcare practitioners all about what they themselves felt was deficient or was good about their healthcare experience. So one thing that we found in going and asking, a lot of times people were just very, very grateful to be given that opportunity to have their voice taken into consideration. And we heard that people were experiencing a lack of access to good quality food. We heard that people were looking to have more farmers markets in their neighborhoods. People were actually also trying to find more information about how to prepare these foods, because what they're finding is a lot of young people growing up, they know where the chicken box, where they can buy a chicken box, but they don't, when they find fresh fruits and vegetables, a lot of times they don't know how to prepare the meals with them. So it was a big opportunity that we saw, that people actually wanted to learn how to prepare healthy foods in their communities and learn how to take care of their families. And we had a lot of older participants in the studies who did want to see more, especially the younger generation, see more interest in cooking classes, and eating foods that were, I guess Amy would call them green light foods more so. And so with the Patients Program, we see an opportunity for us to have forums such as this, that this is one of the reasons we added this to this year's Patients Day, because we wanted to bring together the voices of the community to put our heads together, come up with ideas for things we can do collectively and individually to address a lot of these issues that we're finding with regard to good food in the community.
Great. Thank you for that. I have another fact that I'll put out there. Over 30% of households do not own a vehicle. So when we think about having access to a healthy food option or a supermarket is more than a quarter mile away. So given that stat, what's something that you're doing with your line of work that will impact those stats? I'm a farmer now.
That's a good point, because I have a vehicle, I'm able to go to the Giant and Mom's Market that are in Hampton, which is technically less within a mile distance from areas Penn North and Druid Heights and Sandtown. But if you don't have a car, you're not getting there anytime soon on foot, and that walk back is going to be serious with those products. Been real quiet about this, but it's getting closer to a fruition. But working on a location on North Avenue. I give out the food rescue giveaways every Wednesday on North and Druid Hill in front of Umar Boxing. So we've been doing that for over a year now. And so that's bringing the attention to the issue, which is being on North Avenue, that you don't have a grocery store from Hilton to Milton. So from east to west, you don't have any main. And if you want to include shoppers, then we include shoppers. If we're going to be technical, but that's at Mondam, and that's what I would not refer to as sustainable food. But I'm working on a location on North and Pulaski that will ultimately serve as similar to the bodegas in New York, having access to fresh vegetables and the juices there, but more importantly, using that social entrepreneurship model, right? So the youth in our programming would actually be the employees, and they would be running the store. So it's like moving a little slower than normal, because I'm not focused on the business aspect of it, more so the infrastructure, like the community, and grooming the youth and their parents and anybody in the community, the same way that street recruiters would do recruiting on the streets, by default. So I'm just saying, hey, look, you have another option. And so that's prolonging some of the work that's being done. We're working on putting on a location in the heart of North Avenue that will have access to all of the food that's more geared for the people of those communities, and the food that they don't have access to at an affordable price.
Yeah, absolutely. I was ready to get you on that.
And so I really appreciate the panel here, and Farmanelle and Lena Cush and Nina. I wanted to touch upon this same question, because there were a number of thoughts that have been running through my mind since we actually started this. So we kind of use interchangeably food desert and food swamps. They're actually two different things. Food desert is the lack of access to healthy produce, and a food swamp is the abundance of unhealthy food. And it was stated earlier that Farmanelle was right on. What we are experiencing is by design. So Baltimore is where redlining started. And you could actually go 2 blocks and cross the line and go from a total different socioeconomic status, because that was actually by design. And so when we start talking about, your question was so loaded, people not having cars, by design. The fact that there is not a well-used and well-programmed mass transit in Baltimore is by design. The fact that the Red Line was canceled a few years ago is by design. So all of these things are actually by design. You mentioned shoppers, and I'm grateful for shoppers. It's in the community I serve. But we all know, I believe, that the future of shoppers is uncertain. So the parent company of Shoppers has made a statement that it wants to get out of that business, and we don't know whether or not there'll be a Shoppers in Montgomery. The Target that was there closed. And so all of this is by design, and what you end up with are people who continuously have to fight an uphill battle for transportation and housing and safety and healthy foods and education and recreation, and it becomes this constant battle, decade after decade, generation after generation. And so my answer to your question, having said all of that, is that the answer is both tactical and strategic. There must be short-term things that we do, like opening a site somewhere on that North Avenue corridor. But long-term, we have to advocate and change policy. Right? That's what you have to do. You have to make your voice heard. You have to cast a vote at the ballot box. You have to put people in place that are going to do some of the things that represent you. You have to strategize. There has to be some collaborative that comes together that says, if you don't do these things, you don't get our vote. Or our money, right? And so it has to be both tactical and strategic, and for far too long, we fail to be strategic.
Thank you, Pastor Lance. As always, he's real dynamic and going full force ahead with the next question, going towards a solution. And this is for the entire panel. I will start with Yanka. A solution, it was saying, supporting a community-driven process that guides equitable food policy and programs. How do you envision, from your vantage point, towards this work, you would be of service?
I mean, there are things that can be done professionally. There are things that can be done where it's like your blood, sweat, and tears going into the process and you engaging with the resources you have outside of the professional setting. For what, I'll address both of them. One, I would say looking at the patients program, that's something that we want to definitely join forces, talking with our people like you that are our community partners and really engaging ourselves, rolling up our sleeves, lending whatever resources that we have to that process, and really looking at how we can make a difference in the community without, doing what is needed and being held accountable for it, because there's a big accountability piece, like Dr. Perman just said in his presentation this morning, that we have to be accountable to the community we serve. And so that is one. And next, on a personal level, looking at your relationships and community building as a strategy for social growth, and looking at, what communities, where you're spending your money, first of all. Are you supporting the land of Cushes of the world? Are you really supporting the shoppers of the world? Are you looking at building and spending your time as a resource to uplift in the community? And that's something that, I hope I answered your question. I'm kind of going off track, but I hope I answered your question.
It was a great start, building those great relationships with community partners, and I can just envision, just because I know the work of the Patients Program, of using the tools of research to actually help to guide the development of food policies with community partners.
Right.
Thank you.
From my vantage point, it's a confluence of things. So me as an individual work, I do a lot of partnership work. There's a lot of individual missions that I'm doing that's just, I'm the only one that I know that can understand the magnitude of some of the stuff that I'm doing. The easy answer is, just keep doing what I'm doing. But a little longer answer is I looked at how I see how, not speaking more so about how the drugs got in the community, but how they were able to stick in the community. So you had despair, trauma, And so there was a need for something. So drugs was put into that void. So then where did despair and trauma come from? There's systematic, but the jobs were pulled. We can just go back to like the 80s and how we ended up here from like the early to mid 80s to now. We'll just start right there. So Pastor's saying, like, taking that same strategic approach, like we were saying, this was by design, okay, it's reverse engineering the design. So I feel like that's what I'm doing by, so all these things are important, policy, all these things included, but if we don't create a reason for the healthy drug, the new stuff that I'm pushing on the corners, for that to have value to the people, you know what I mean? Same way drugs have value to the people, either as a quick fix to get away from the pain, or a means, a social enterprise, a means to get out of that desecration.
Yeah.
Right, so taking that same model, like, okay, this is how much money you can make off of selling these products and all, and also this is actually empowering, but where's the value, like, if we're not planting the seeds of the values of empowerment, like, they don't know what that is, so we gotta, reverse engineer a lot of unlearning and then redesigning, setting off new strategies, the long-term goals as well as the short-term goals to get us there, because the youth may not recognize the plants of the seeds that we plant now if we don't explain it to them beforehand, if that makes sense. Right. So my whole makeup right now is that of a farmer, inside and outside of dealing with growing stuff, like growing vegetables rather. Right. Like it's about planting seeds of sustainability, rather thrivability. It's changing the wording. It's thrivability as opposed to sustainability. If you're coming from behind, you just don't want to come from poverty to just sustain. That's the goal. Everything's just something sustainable. That's what America was built off. That's the poor of America, is sustainability. Right. So we're looking at to create methods of thrivability. And just using myself as an example, if I'm doing 10 things, there's a young youth looking at me knowing that a man can do 10 things. Right. A black man from Baltimore City, from zone 21217, can do 10 things. Maybe not all to the degree of the fullest extent of those 10 things, but you can do those things. And just using ourselves as an example.
Great example. Continue doing your great work in the youth programs that you're doing. Thank you.
I think as far as solutions, to kind of add on to what you were saying, is creating demand. Create the demand from the people. So getting them really interested in it, and like Nell said, planting seeds. And so just working with people, I find working with the youth, in terms of the restaurant, when we hire people, we hire a lot of youth from the city that probably, I can be assured that many of them probably would not have another opportunity for a job. And so, transforming them, because I see you can't just be apart, you can't be apart from the people. So you can say things to people like, I could go into a neighborhood and drop some jewels and say, you should be eating like this, and then go back home. But if I'm not interacting with those people on a regular basis, not knowing who their parents are, their families are, their grandparents are, what's going on, you got to be involved with the day-to-day with people. It's great to sit back here in the air conditioning is nice and comfortable, but you got to get out in the heat of the world. And I think about that always. Just like you got to get out there in the heat and go into the fire of the people and build relationships with those people. So the more they see, when they see you, or they might hear us on a commercial, they're like, yo, I know them, I gotta stop by that restaurant, I've never been down there, but I gotta go down there. And then that opens up a door, and that gives us an opportunity to talk to people and just build more relationships. And then also being strategic, very strategic about what we're doing in terms of, Nell mentioned zip codes, but just looking at communities. If we can, get a grasp on one community and then add the next community that's right next door to it, that builds a powerful base and foundation for what we're trying to do. So really trying to be strategic about this work that we're doing, so that it's not, 21201, 21207, you know, somewhere else that's far away. But if we can connect, you know, a neighborhood to a neighborhood and they're right next to each other, that just builds a more powerful base. So being strategic and then getting out into the heat and doing the work and building relationships with people.
Okay, y'all are all that, that's all I can say. So, I would urge us, yes, my research, I would urge us to do what we call benchmarking. So in Philadelphia has a program going now they call Rebuild Philly. And what they did was use universities in Philadelphia to provide data. And they created an equity map based on that. So they looked at all of Philadelphia, they looked at where obesity was most prevalent, where they had different kinds of violence issues, and they used the research from their universities to provide an equity map as to what areas they needed to address the most. Out of that, one of the things that came out of that research was that if they imposed a soda tax, they would generate about $300 million in additional revenue that they could then leverage in bond building for even more money, but that what they would promise is that they would use that money only for one of three things: to build a school, a rec center, or a library in one of those equity depressed areas. And so they used research to start. They then used research to determine how to collect additional money. They used research to back that when the soda industry fought against it. And they promised the people that if we do this, we'll use money to improve these equity depressed areas. And so research can be used if there's a will to do it.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Can we get a kind of round of applause on that? And at this moment right now, I will actually give the opportunity to the audience to ask a question, so that as the mic come to you, the question is, how can someone support your efforts?
First and foremost, we always can use human resources, consistent human resources in the form of, even if it's just one day a month, you know, one strategy. This Sunday, we're having a restaurant night with the youth at the Food Project. It's normally the last Sunday of each month, but the way this month fell with Memorial Day being last weekend, we felt that we would just be better to do it this Sunday. We're open to any forms of donations, from seeds to snacks to cash. That's always helpful. Just partnerships are helpful as well too, like meaningful partnerships, not just, you know, a dog and pony show. Because I don't want to be novelty. I don't want to be, you know, I have other projects that I'm working on that are just as, you know, cool and meaningful for the community that I want to get more into. So I want to shift my conversation from this. I want it to be more of a local conversation, especially with those that have been doing it far longer than what I have in this sector of the city. Just connecting the dots was always helpful for me. So there isn't really one answer. Human resources are where it starts, because you're able to build relationships and people are able to see what I'm actually doing, to see if it is what it's all, you know, cracked up to be. You know, it might not be as advertised. You know, not that I'm advertising anything other than the health and wellness through products, but also seeing the voids that the gaping holes in what I'm doing, because I'm so focused on like 3 things out of a circle of, you know, 365 things. You know, join, you know, get in when you fit in. You know, bless you. Come in with your sector, you know what I mean? Come see what we're doing. And if there's an abundance, we definitely have a need for anything that spills over and out of anybody else's cup. So human resources, I would say, is the biggest key, because humans are connected to everything that we need, whether it's, you know, a thing, or whether it's, you know, just a helping hand. We serve meals 5 days a week. So when I leave here, I'm going to the Food Project to serve meals. So now we've been doing that for a month now, and that requires more. Yeah. So the food project is at 424 South Pulaski Street. It's in the old Samuel F.B. Morse, Morse Code Elementary, and we operate out of the cafeteria and the kitchen. And so the Carlton Ridge community has the lot across the street. It's 424 South Pulaski Street, 21223. And that's Carlton Ridge. So right across the street, we have, there's a vacant lot that we put out some raised beds that we plan on growing. But I mean, everything we're doing is so slow because it's like literally step by step. And then since we're mission-based with the youth, that community is in dire straits. So it's like I might want to grow, like, hey, we're gonna put seeds on the cocoa pads and learn how to grow microgreens. And kids might just be flat out hungry and you can't even get a word in because the behavior is crazy. And then whatever they put in their system, that's a chemical experiment. So we even show them the science experiments of what sugar does and how much sugar is inside of soda and things of that nature, so they can actually see it, so they can get enrolled in the actual health and not just saying, hey, you should do this, you're supposed to do this. We don't deal with words like should and supposed to. And so, I don't know if that answers your question, but just, I'm sorry.
So, thank you for that. I have a question for Greg Brown. One of the questions that I know that we're asking about, how can someone support or participate in your efforts? So my question will be for you is, do you offer any type of community outreach or cooking classes, teaching about healthy eating?
I'm always available for cooking classes, but that's what we have the Black Vegetarian Society in Maryland for. We do cooking classes. We've done cooking classes through there. Then we also, June 15th, we have the Keep It Fresh Day, where we're focused on fresh foods and things of that nature for the youth. So that's going to be at Drew Hill Park. So we do events like that. And then my wife also puts on Vegan Soul Fest. That's going to be August 3rd out at Lake Clifton. So there'll be a lot of information out there. But you can either reach out to the Black Vegetarian Society of Maryland if you want a cooking demo. I mean, we have a team, so we partner with people. So, I mean, I'm definitely available to come out, but we also have someone, Crystal Foreman, who does excellent cooking demos. Naja likes to use a blender, so, but yeah, I mean, we definitely can do that, but I would say reach out to us via the Land of Kush, info@thelandofkush.com. Oh yeah, we put some guides over there. Naja was graceful enough to put African American vegan starter guide over there. So if you're interested, it's a free guide, plenty of information, plenty of recipes on how to get started on that. And then there's some flyers over there for the Keep It Fresh Day as well. So just reach out if we can be of any support to you.
Thank you. Last question, I will give this towards Yanka. After hearing this panel with a wealth of knowledge, how would you envision the Patients Program partner up with some of these great stakeholders to promote healthy neighborhoods?
Definitely, I personally would like to see us extending a hand out to Farmanelle and Greg and Pastor Lance. We already see a lot of Pastor Lance, but we can do a better job with partnering with some of the voices that haven't come to the table yet in our discussions in terms of serving the community. I would like to see, a stepping stone with everyone here that is engaged in the work to improve access to healthy food and access to health information. Just feel free to approach us as well. We definitely see ourselves, we use the word partner a lot, and definitely would like to see us supporting each other because, we're not necessarily saying we have all the knowledge and information on this particular topic as an institution and Patients Program, but we definitely look and see that there are people, some very well-meaning people who are doing a whole lot of things in the community that we can learn from and support. So I definitely, want to open up lines of communication once we, get back to our day-to-day activities and patients, the glitz and glamour of Patients Day is all over. But we want to actually see, like we use the term boots on the ground. We want to see, more involvement in a lot of community engagement activities that actually benefit the community at this level.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm being respectful of everyone's time. And I'll give you 30 seconds for a closing, starting with Pastor Lance. I know everybody else left their information.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
I love the comment earlier about be careful where you spend your money. I love that. So, as a student of history, the Montgomery bus boycott, they refused to spend money with that system for a year, and it changed how they acted. Be careful where you spend your money.
Thank you.
That was good. Oh, you want me?
You
Oh, okay. Get to know everybody. Get names. Build relationships with people. I love the phone. I love, this is a great gadget. A lot of information on it. Love to do research on it. But it's also good to talk to human beings. You know what I'm saying? And find out, because you don't know. You just don't know. I mean, anybody could be doing a number of things that may have interest to you. Build relationships with people. Don't be afraid of the people that may look different from you, even if they may have the same skin tone as you. But don't look at them as being different. Don't be afraid to build relationships with people and find out where they're from, what they're doing, and how we can all partner.
I want to thank Rodney, Dewan, and Yinka and the Patients Program for inviting me to this panel to participate, and as well as the surprise. It was very gracious. Anybody can make a dollar. Anybody can't make a difference.
Preach, bro. I know, right?
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know how I can add to that. Yeah, definitely. When it all comes down to it, it's just a matter of love and learning how to extend love to each other through supporting each other in our different efforts that we're doing. We all want to go in the same direction, which is better than we're doing now. And so, supporting each other, learning from each other, and using everything we have to move forward.
Thank you. Give a round of applause.